All right, guys, it's Mental Health on the Mic. We are so excited for this week's episode, Instability, and we're welcoming our friend Mouse to the show. Mouse, welcome to Mental Health on the Mic.
Hello. Hello. I'm glad to be here. Um, very, very invested.
Yeah, it's so cool that you listen to episodes before this. We're so glad to have you on. So, Mouse, why don't you tell our listeners how you and I know each other? And obviously now you know Lorraine, but tell everybody what's up.
we are in a psychology class together, and we listen to the same animated lectures. And yeah, first day of class, he wore a shirt that says, asked me about my podcast. And I was like, this is a guy I need to get to know. And after class, I was like, how do I get there? How do I get on? And here we are.
Love it.
Yes, I love the energy. I'm honored, and I'm glad I wore the shirt because I'm excited that we got to know each other. Our theme this week is instability. Now, life has its ups and downs. I think we all know that, and it is kind of frustrating sometimes because it's one thing when you have a good day, but then there's bad days, and kind of balancing the ups and downs, going through the motions. And I think that that's what we're really looking forward to talking about. So, Mouse, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about yourself and kind of why you feel that it's important to talk about mental health.
Well, every aspect of our lives revolves around mental health, no matter if like people want to admit to that or not. Things like jobs and being at home with your family, all of that has to it's all influenced by your mental health. If you're at a job and it makes you feel crappy all the time, then you're gonna be like, this sucks. I hate my life. I hate working at this job. I'm gonna have to work for the rest of my life. And if you're around your family that also makes you feel crappy, you're gonna be like, this sucks. And I don't want to be around this for too long. So yeah, like talking about mental health is important because everybody goes through it. Everybody has it. And the more that you make it, the more that you kind of destigmatize it, the easier it is for everyone to like digest that conversation, because it's kind of embarrassing for most people to even acknowledge mental health if it's not like pristine and at its peak. So yeah.
That's so true because one of our goals with this show is to kind of make mental health mainstream. I think that, as you said, it's so easy to only show the good parts, right? And so this show is kind of about taking, honestly, the good parts and the bad parts, because not every day is a bad day, hence instability. Some days are actually good, and instability can almost be a good thing part of the time. But I want to ask both of you guys, and I'll kind of chime in. Lorraine, starting with you, what do you think of, like, what comes to mind when you hear the word instability?
I think of, non-linear, not consistent. I think it's up and downs, something that's not stable. That's kind of what comes to me at first. And, it kind of defines life, because life is not, always up, and it's not always down. It's very hilly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what kind of comes to mind when I think of instability.
Yeah, Mouse?
I mean, personally, I really, really enjoy stability. I like it when everything is the same, everything is nice and in order. And so for me, instability is like the worst thing ever. I do not like sudden changes. I don't like my everyday like schedules and behaviors to be disrupted. So for me, instability, when I think about it, I think of it as my mortal enemy.
Mm.
And even just like aside from like schedule changes, I don't like instability with socially either, like who I associate with and my friends and things like that. I like that to stay the same also. But as you know, as we grow older, it's never going to stay the same.
Right.
Mm.
That's a good point. Yeah, I too, I feel like I've always struggled since childhood with instability, because I would have really strong overreactions to things not going my way. I like things to be a certain way. I was very rigid, and I think I've gotten better over the years. But I think that part of it is just like accepting the fact that life is unstable, because there's no way getting around it. Like, that's what's hard is, we can want things to go a certain way, but life just throws curveballs. And Yeah, like that's why I feel like it's important that if we can all learn to deal with it, it's an ongoing process and it's something where we could be okay with it for a while and then one thing happens that we just cannot accept. Like if a really big life event happens that throws a curveball, it's a big deal. But I just think talking about it, can be helpful. So, Mouse, I'm kind of curious since you're our guest. I want to know about your mental health journey and honestly, all the way going back to the beginning, I want to start with when you maybe first noticed that you were struggling with something and what that was.
Yeah, so I guess that would be my sophomore year of high school.
Mm.
And I think this also like goes back to the whole instability thing where I mean usually I never really like paid attention to how I was doing in school. Like it was good enough, but at some point I ended up failing a class which was chemistry. Um
That's a rough class. So
it's awful.
I commend you for
Absolutely
taking
awful.
it. I commend you for that. Yeah. Yeah.
Never took
Yeah,
it.
Been there.
never again. um
Yeah.
I had to take chemistry and I was not grasping it. And usually like when I'm in class, I'm like, I don't ever struggle so much where it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to get this. And I was getting a lot of pressure from my family about it because, oh, you got to get all A's and this and that. And I could tell like my grade was just rapidly dropping by the week. And that's when I started to like get a lot of depressive symptoms. And it really from there, it just kicked off the rest of my like mental health decline. And yeah, it was just like I was so used to getting these same sort of grades. And then once it was like, oh my gosh, I'm failing and there's nothing I can do about this. Like I've tried everything. I don't know what to do. My family's upset. And it was just like, oh my gosh, everything's over. And
Mhm.
um yeah, from there it was just like lots of anxiety about checking my grades. Like even now, like that was years ago, and even now I still have trouble checking my grades.
I do too. It's rough. Academic stress is insane.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like I almost feel a little crazy still being that type of person that like never checks my grades because other people be like, oh well, like what did you get on that test? And I'm like, beats me. Your guess is good as mine. I'm like, that's a good question. That's a really good question. And yeah, but I'm like, every year or every semester, I'm like, this will be the semester I check my grades. And then I'm like, no. I'm not sure if this is like a mental health thing, but it kind of is like, I started to realize that I also probably had like ADHD. And I would say that like ties in with mental health because I was doing things very differently from how people wanted me to do them. And I did not know why. And it was just like making me anxious and making me stressed out. It's like, why am I doing it like this? But yeah, now, fast forward, uh, I got an ADHD diagnosis. I'm on medication for that, and I have a therapist. And things are considerably better than when I didn't have all of
That's
that.
good. That's
That is
good.
good.
Yeah.
No, I relate so much with the numbers are so daunting. I hate numbers because I just feel like you go into a spiral where you associate yourself with a number you see from like a grade or something. And
Yeah.
I totally understand, how daunting it is to check that stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Lorraine, I mean, I know that you've talked before about on the show about academic stress. Actually, last week, Mouse, I don't
Yeah.
know if you know this, but we had a college
Yeah.
counselor on, so she talked to us about anxiety, for what it was like for high schoolers getting into school, and even once you get to college, the anxiety that you might face. But Lorraine, I know that you did talk about how, academics are a stress for you, so I'm sure that you guys relate on that level, as you
Yeah.
already
No,
said.
I'm in my junior year now and that's the roughest year for me right now. But yeah, that's kind of the cause I think of my instability is like that stress from that. Like I have great highs and I have really bad lows. So I think that's one of the biggest things I struggle with that stress. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard, well, it was said a lot in high school, like junior year is the hardest year of high school. And I mean, for me, it wasn't because I was taking easy breezy classes while everyone was in APs. So, but for a lot of other juniors, I know it's really hard.
It's hard in that regard, and it's also just hard because there's so much stress about the standardized tests, and then it's just everything feels like it counts that year because that's the year that colleges look at, and it's like
Yeah.
it's a lot.
What's the deal? Wasn't there something that no, I don't know, like a law, but something that was just passed, the SAT announcing they're going to drop that requirement for a lot of colleges? Did you hear about that? Either of you?
Okay, so it's because of the pandemic. Different classes, it's like not required for most, so like you can take the test but you don't have to submit it. I don't think they released for my year 2023 what the decision is on that. I heard that I think after 2024 or 2024 they're doing like it all on a computer. Like I think they're shortening they're like doing some weird stuff with that. I have no clue. But yeah, COVID's kind of changing things up, so yeah.
But anyway, Mal, so one thing that I was thinking about was I know that because you talked about academic pressure, I think this could kind of get us down deeper into some more of the roots of maybe what you've gone through, but you talked about the pressure and like you don't check the grades because you feel the pressure to succeed. And I know that you mentioned family, but I'm kind of curious that like within yourself, what kind of pressure do you feel and like what sparks that, fear of not achieving a certain thing?
It's kind of weird because honestly, I feel like I don't give myself pressure at all until I realize like, oh my gosh, I might have like really messed up and I might have really tanked like my grade here. Before then, I kind of would make decisions where it's like, yeah, that like project is due, but like I'm gonna wait the night before, or like, yeah, like that homework is due, but I'll wait. And then it's like, oh, I missed it. And it's like, I just keep going by and I'm like, it'll be fine. It's the beginning. And then, I keep missing stuff. And then it's like, oh no, now here's the test. And if I like really mess up on this test, like I'm going to like tank my grade for real. And I'm going to have to like climb up from that. It's going to be awful. And I think that's probably where like the anxiety about my grades and stuff really kicks in, because originally I don't go into my classes thinking like I'm gonna mess up or like this is gonna be really bad. In the beginning, I'm like, this will be a piece of cake. And then the executive dysfunction kicks in and it's like, let's not do anything. Let's just wait, like, I know you really want to do that thing, but what if we just sat here for like another 2 hours? And honestly, that's kind of what's happening now, because I have like stuff for my nutrition class due tonight. And I'm like, we'll do that after the podcast.
What made you choose doing a nutrition class? Was that your choice, or I'm just curious?
I don't know. It was like just one of those things where I need a science credit. And it was like, this will be easy. This sounds easy. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. I don't get nervous until after I'm like in the deep end, and it's like, oh God, I don't even want to know how badly I messed up this time. And then it's like, only then I'm like, wow, how did this happen again? Like, how am I here again? But I think Adderall is really going to help with that. I haven't been on it too long, but I think it's really going to help with like the executive dysfunction, because when you're on Adderall, it's like when you want to do something, you don't just like sit there glued to the bed. You're like, okay, I'm gonna do it. Wow, that's crazy. I'm doing it. And so yeah, I'm like, I'm hoping that this semester is not like the other semesters where I fail at least one class from like really dumb reasons. It's not even like I don't know the work. It's just I end up accidentally not doing it.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you have resources and you're doing things and taking action steps. So that's really good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have ADD, so I get that, what you're saying. I mean, I didn't realize till a couple years ago, and when I did, I was like, it all clicked, because I'm like, I can't. For me, I've got all these things going through my mind at once. I want to do this, and this, get this, and this done. I actually am kind of obsessed with making schedules for myself, and then I like never follow them. Like I literally, before this semester started, I made like a Monday through Friday, like this is what I'm going to do. This is when I'm going to do homework. This is when I'm going to do, podcast editing. Like I would do that, and I never follow it because every single day I'm like, oh wait, but I want to do this. I should do this, but I really would rather do this right now. So it's like it's
Mm,
kind of almost like needing to give yourself the discipline, but then having that almost kind of battle in your mind of like, I know what I need to do, but this is what I want to do.
yeah. What's actually really interesting about that is I'm starting to question whether I'm also autistic. And like the one of the things about autism is the need to have like a schedule, but when it's like um what's the word? When you have both autism and ADHD, even if you're like, I need to have this schedule or I'm not gonna do anything, the ADHD would be like laughs at your face, like, yeah, we're not following that schedule. I know you wanted to do that, but like,
So it's like counteracting.
Mm.
yeah,
Okay.
it's really interesting. It's really interesting how a lot of different like mental disorders and stuff like counteract with each other.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, that's what I've been like trying to figure out. I'm like, is this autism or is this ADHD or is this both or is this like the mental illness? And it's like, or is it all of them together? It's very, very interesting trying to figure that all out.
I'm
Yeah.
sure that many people who are listening to this can like relate to that because there's so much out there and so many people have so many different things, and I'm sure it's very confusing to figure out what you really have because there's just so much complexity to it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
neurodiversity is complicated. And like you said, Lorraine, there's counteraction. And like you said, Mouse, you wonder like, well, I have this, but then I think I have that too. And
Right.
it's like, which one's really in charge, or are they able to actually balance each other out? I think that's probably something that you or maybe anyone listening who has similar experiences wonders sometimes. And again, neurodiversity. I mean, I watched this show Atypical on Netflix. I don't know if I've talked to Lorraine about it. I don't know if have you heard of it, Mouse?
I've seen clips of it on TikTok, but I haven't actually watched it myself.
I
Uh-huh.
haven't either.
Yeah, well, it's about a boy named Sam who has autism and is on the higher functioning end of the spectrum, and he it's a voiceover every week, so like he'll the story will go on, but he'll like say things out loud, and or like you hear what's in his mind, and he's saying like, I wonder if like like my way of thinking is like the more normal way of thinking versus the way the world sees it. And I think that it kind of gets into this whole thing, like not only do individuals struggle with wondering like, oh, am I this or am I that, but then the world sees people differently, and then it's like it gets into a whole nother complex thing.
Yeah, that just I don't know, that really does remind me of myself in a way where it's like sometimes I'll like do something or I like for certain scenarios, let's say like for apologizing about something, in my mind, I'm like, this is the exact proper way that this should be done. And then when it's like I see someone else do it, I'm like, what? Like you're doing it wrong. And then it makes me
Hmm.
mad. I'm like, that's not how I think you should be doing that. Or if um if someone was, I don't know, like if I was being apologized to, it's like that's not how you apologize to someone. Or if I'm
Mm.
apologizing to someone, it's like that's not the way you should respond to an apology. It's just so weird. I'm like, I have like this like rule book in my own mind, which I've heard like when a lot of people talk about autism, they're often like, I feel like other people have a rule book except for me. And then with me, I'm like, I feel like I'm the only one with the rule book. I'm like, what's
Mm.
going on? I'm like, what? Like, and I guess I study these sort of things, but like, I don't know if other people get these videos. And I've been questioning that too. I'm like, am I the only one getting these like videos, these like mental health videos where they're like, oh, this is how you should like communicate with a person, or here's healthy ways to like communicate with people. And I see those and I just absorb it. I take it in and I just carry that with me through life. And I'm like, how, why are you, that's not like, I don't know, it's just weird. I'm like, I feel like I'm the only one who knows how to properly communicate.
Mm.
And I can
It feels
see
like
that.
that sometimes because
Yeah.
people have a hard time communicating, I've noticed. throughout my life. So I feel like a lot of times I'm like, am I the only one who can talk? Like, I
Yeah,
hate
so
people
have I.
who's like, who they can't communicate, apologies don't seem sincere, or like
Right.
people beat around the bush, and I'm like, just talk. Like, I don't understand why it's so hard.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's just so weird. Like every interaction or like every encounter I make with a person, I'm like, why? Like, how many people can't communicate? I thought this was like a normal skill, but it
Yeah.
really is something a lot of people don't know how to do. It's like you have to keep building
Yeah.
up on it.
Right.
Oh my God, I totally agree. I think I too feel like it's frustrating because I can't tell you how many times I've tried to make friends and I have such a hard time making friends. Maybe it's also because of my social anxiety, which is a whole nother conversation. I'm actually kind of curious because I know you mentioned anxiety. Maybe it's just me. I don't know if I'm the only one in this room who has social anxiety, but um, it's it's like, yeah, I have a high standard as far as like I want to understand that everybody's minds are different. Everybody thinks differently. But when that standard is not met, like for friends, for example, if I don't feel that there's communication, if I don't feel that an apology is sincere, I feel tempted to be like, oh, well, they're probably not a good friend for me. Whereas everybody else would just be like, oh, get over it, dude. Like,
Yeah.
nobody's perfect, but I feel a sense of like, okay, well, they don't meet this requirement or that requirement, so these are red
Mhm.
flags, and now I have to start wondering and looking out every time I see them, are they like
Mouse is
I
like,
sense like, are you relating or what's going on?
I am. I'm like, I'm seeing myself. I'm like, oh gosh, I was literally thinking about this today.
Oh my
I
God.
was because I like had this like whole falling out thing with someone who used to be my best friend, and
oh, I'm sorry.
I was yeah, it truly is. And I was just like thinking about how like um I don't know, like she's apologized a certain way, but like I'm like, I want this certain apology, but I feel like what
Mm.
I want isn't exactly like I don't know, it's not necessarily the only and right way of like getting something, you
Mhm.
know? And I keep just sitting there and like being like, okay, is this a red flag or am I just like overthinking this because of
Mhm.
my own like crazy standards or am I like I just keep going back and forth, bouncing back and forth, and it's making me like keep bouncing back and forth about how I feel about the person. So it's
Mhm.
really delaying like the healing process of the whole
Mm.
Yeah.
thing because I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about them. I'm like, am I just overreacting or is this like a proper way to feel or should I like be more open to what's being said to me? And I don't really know. It's really hard to decipher that sort of thing. It's like I don't know if I should prioritize like um I don't know. It's just really weird.
A series of events recently in my life with people have led me to the realization that I think I have a bigger fear of confrontation than I thought, because I want to tell
Mm,
these people how I feel and I want to explain what I'm feeling. And then I don't know if it's a fear like again, if I'm not happy with them, I don't know if I'm necessarily afraid of losing them, but I still don't want to come across like for them to think that I'm a jerk, when in reality I'm just saying how I feel and probably being respectful about it as well. But like I have one situation in particular where I want to tell this person how I feel. I'm like, you don't communicate. Um I don't think you value this friendship as much as I do. But then I don't even feel comfortable enough with the person to say it. And then I'm like, does that mean they're not really my great friend at all to begin with because I don't feel that comfortable? And like all these questions I'm posing just like make me question
yeah.
like who am I to this person? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely know what you mean. Um, and then, once again, it all goes back to the instability because now you're like this friendship that I was so sure about, it's getting a little rocky and I don't know how
Mhm.
to feel about it anymore. I think once you feel as if you can't express something personal about how you feel to a person, that kind of tells you all you need to
Yeah.
know
Mm,
about the friendship. Not
Mhm.
saying that like the other person is some sort of like vile villain,
right.
but like I think it just says like maybe that person has like shut you down about something before or like you're afraid of how they're going to take something because they always take something like a different way or maybe you've been met with like that sort of outcome before but when it's like I only feel that way about specific people. So it's not like a generalized thing I feel about a lot of people. Um, and so when I start to realize like, oh no, like I don't want to bring this stuff up to you because I feel like you're not going to take it the right way, and I'm just going to end up walking away feeling bad about it. And that should not happen in a friendship.
No, because they should understand you, and
Right.
it's almost like when you are with friends with someone, you kind of do. I almost wonder if you have to find like friends that like think similarly to you, because it's like in the world you are going to meet people who are thinking like not everybody can possibly think exactly like you, but it makes me wonder if like true friends are only people who do think at least similarly enough to who you are, because
or can like accept your views
yeah,
and not try to change what you
right.
think.
Good point. It's like, yeah, like accept who you are and at least understand who you are, because even if you see the world differently, be able to say like, hey man, I get that you take this as what a proper apology is, or you take this as what communication should look like. I take it like this. Maybe we can meet in the middle.
Right,
Or
compromise.
or we have to at least be somewhat similar, I think, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you are different, compromise is like key. If it's just like, well, this is how I feel, so deal with it. Then you're gonna both be standing there like,
Or like it's
what?
my way or the highway, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
What just happened? Like, oh my gosh, something like that happened to me recently where this like this person I know was like supposed to do my hair, and we had like talked about it a week prior, and it was like, yeah, like this is the time we're gonna do it, and these are the days I'm free, and here we go. And I was like, the day comes, I'm like, hey, where are you? And it's like, oh, sorry, I ended up having to go to work. And it was just like, okay, well, could you have like told me that? And they were like, oh, haha, silly me, I'm like just so bad at communicating. And I
That
was
makes
like,
my blood boil.
yeah,
Like, why can't people just talk again? Like, we're back at that. Like, I don't get it.
The irony is like, I almost think people sometimes don't tell you because they think it's like gonna hurt your feelings, like, oh, I can't do this. But it's more hurtful when they don't tell you, and then you're left out to dry, and it's like you don't care enough about my feelings or my time to basically leave me out here. And I'm dealing with that with someone right now, where it's like, and they also like they make Lorraine's heard this already. She's like, I know what you're talking
I know,
about.
that's why I made a face when Mouse was talking about that, because I'm like,
yeah, we're not here to name
No.
drop, but like Lorraine knows who I'm talking about. So I feel as though it's all given, like it's all give and what is it? All give and no all wait, my brain.
I'll give and wait. I'll give and no,
See, our brains are stressed.
I'll get wait.
I literally know what you're talking about, but I don't know the saying either.
I'll give and no receive.
Or something, but it's just like
that situation of like someone making promises with you and then being nonchalant when they can't keep up with them, and then like the same sort of dance where it's like, well, I would do the same for you, so why aren't you doing the same for me? It's like, oh my god, it's awful. It's so awful. And when I was in that, it just like completely stressed me out, because I can never tell like what my place is in someone's life when they treat me like that.
Yeah, if you make someone your number one and you're not theirs,
oh yeah,
that sucks. That hurts.
An actual L. Like, it's awful.
No, literally. Like, okay, thanks. Right.
Yeah, like, oh my god, it's it really it is hurtful. Like, but the weird thing again is like the people aren't even always, like you said, Mouse, they're not always like these vile creatures who like are just jerks. There's sometimes like, I guess, decent human beings who just like don't value your friendship. So like you feel bad telling them to their face like, I don't want to be your friend, or that you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, because they've never been like mean to you. They just don't care about you. And that's like the it's so much older you get as a human being, friendship just becomes more and more complicated, because there's so many more layers where it's like, it's not just playing in the sandbox. We got to have open conversations. We got to have
it's no longer the play date. It's like, it's not just playing dolls or whatever. Like, it's a whole new realm.
And that's when you start to realize, like, people's love languages and how they affect you, because like one person probably isn't going to think like, the way I need to preserve this friendship is by hanging out with this person all the time. They'll probably just think like, oh, we can just like text every now and then, and you know, we keep in touch when we keep in touch, and that's how I view like having a good friendship. And me on the other hand, I'm like, no, we have to like talk all the time, and we have to go hang
Yeah.
out whenever, you know, whenever I just want to see you. Like I
Right.
always felt like if I want to see my friend, like I want to see my friend. I don't feel like it needs to be a special occasion to see somebody, and other people don't
Yes.
feel that way.
Yes. I'm such a like people person. Like I want to like hang out with you. I want to like see you, not just get a hey, what are you doing? How are you? Every like 2 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's honestly
Mhm.
bullshit. I'm sorry, it's bullshit. Like we're all the same here, okay? You gotta, not saying that like everybody needs space, but like every 2 weeks, in my case, is probably more than that with this one situation. It's not real. I'm sorry. It's just like you're doing it to feel good about yourself to check in with a person.
um I don't know. It's so awkward. Like I got to a point where I had to like manually go to each of my friends and be like, or like the ones that don't text me every day and be like, hey, how's it going? What's up? And, you know, really try to start a conversation because I knew they weren't going to do it first. And if I weren't going to them, like, it would just be like a whole week of nothing unless, you know, every now and then they send me a TikTok. And I was
Uh,
just like, yeah, I don't like this kind of friendship. And I ended up having to like isolate myself from a lot of my friends because I was like, this is not ideal. This is not what I want. And the longer
yeah.
I think about this and the longer I'm like in the same space of it, the more I was like getting upset and like really angry. And at first I was like, this is impulsive. Like, you know, I've hung out with my friends before. I love these people, blah, 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 blah. But it was just like, okay, well, now they've changed, obviously. And
Yeah.
I can't keep up with like silence, radio
No,
silence.
yeah, friendship, those they have to go both ways. You can't be the one reaching out every time. Like it has to be 50-50. And some people just don't get that. All they want to get is like the receiving end, but they never give.
Yeah.
And that's just aggravating because it's like, you know,
The selfish human desire to just check off a box and say, I have a friend, but not actually
yeah,
give them,
it's
check
like
their
you're a
box.
number. It's like you're a number in their friends list. That's it. That's all you are. It's like what?
Oh, yeah.
Like I
I
just don't want to be your
know.
friend number 20. Like I want to be something to you.
Right. Like I value like connecting and knowing how you're actually doing, not just like I'm good or you know, like no, I wanna know what's going on in your life.
Mm.
Um yeah, and recently a friend that I had that was like that, where it was like they weren't telling me things about like their life anymore, which was like a difference from how it used to be because we used to share things all the time. But you know, I would like see on their Instagram story, they're like posting screenshots of them being in other group chats and talking to other people and being more active with other people. And at one point I was going like through you know, the stuff with my ex-best friend and then being having to address the friend group because she was part of the friend group and I had to leave it or like leave the group chat and like make another one without her in it just for my own
Oh.
sanity.
Mhm.
And I had to like, you know, be like, yeah, so you know, things are this way and it really sucks. And during that whole thing, like he hadn't said anything about it to me. He hadn't like tried to comfort me about it. He hadn't tried to like he didn't say anything. And I had to like tell that friend group because uh they kind of were, I don't know, they were being very like flaky about my feelings. I'd be like, you know, we really need to talk about this, really need to talk about this. And no one was really like wanting to talk about it. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to need space from this group because I feel like my feelings aren't being prioritized. And then it was then like two of my friends like was like, oh God, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I was doing that. But like the other one who was like negligent of the friendship, he like didn't read it, didn't say anything, still hasn't said anything.
Mm.
carrying on the friendship with the other two people as if nothing even happened. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're not in my life anymore. I don't want you in it anymore.
Good for you. Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
I feel like this episode should be called Instability and Friendship, because I think that we've hit on some things that are really at the same time. I'd say that friendship does go hand in hand with instability, because I do think that there are probably some friends that it is day to day, where like maybe one day you feel like they're a good friend and the next day you're like, oh, they're a shitty friend, and it goes back and forth. But ultimately you do want to find those people who kind of treat you like number one and don't make you feel like your number is going up and down on a regular basis.
No, it sucks when people change and people switch up.
Right.
Because you reminisce, like, okay, it used to be so great. Like what we had before was so great and so positive, so healthy. And then all of a sudden it's like a whole switch up, and it's like, what happened? Did I do something? Is something going on with them? And it's like, you're like questioning yourself, like, why did this go wrong? When did this go wrong? And like, what do I do? Because it sucks, because you think like that person was a good person and everything was good, so it's hard.
Definitely.
And then it kind of makes you question, like, what is a good person? And like, it's like, are they a bad person, or are we just different people now? Are we just grown apart? Because for me specifically in high school, I got really fixated on who was like a good friend, or like a good person or a bad person. Like if someone did something to me, like whether it was like ghosting me or I don't know, just making like bad decisions, it was like, oh, that is a bad person. And in my mind, I was like, you are forever a bad person. There was no reason to change it, because I was like, well, if I'm never talking to this person again, there's no reason for me to like have a different opinion about them. And then recently, two people who I had that sort of like mindset on, I went to my high school's school play during the fall, and I used to be part of the drama department, so I was like, I'm back home, my toxic home. And if you've been in a drama department, you know. And so I go back, and I'm there before the show starts, because I got the alumni privilege of wandering around and stuff. And this guy who like I used to be really close friends with, and then like it got rocky and we just like never talked again. He's like, do you still hate me? I'm like, it was so long ago. So I'm just like, no. And he was like, okay, good. And then we end up like talking and stuff and catching up. And he was like basically asking to be my friend again. And I was just like, I didn't know that was a possibility. I didn't know that was something that could happen. I was like, once someone's bad, I thought it was just, they're bad forever and you just don't have to deal with that person anymore. But like, obviously, it's a lot more nuanced, where it's like, has this person changed? Is this person, have they learned from whatever mistakes they made in the past? And in that situation, we kind of both were like a little crappy. So it was just like, many years have passed for us to be better people. And once we started talking again, I was just like, whoa, like I miss this. This is crazy.
No, I definitely think people can grow and change. I like to think that. So I'm glad that you guys are reconnecting. I think reconnection is really interesting and cool. Now they're back in your life and you're like, oh, this is nice. You don't really know what you missed or lacked out on until you have it again,
And what's even funnier about that situation is I was invited to go see that play with my friend and another person that was like on that list of people that I just thought I was never going to talk to again. And I was just like, whoa. And I was like, you know what? YOLO. I'll go for the experience.
I love that phrase. Sorry, I have to like cut you off. I love YOLO. I say that all the time.
She really does. Like
my permanent mindset. I'm like, I gotta do what I gotta do for the content. It's whatever. I was like, let's see how this goes.
I love that.
And I go and I'm like, whoa, I forgot this dude's like so funny.
I love when YOLO works out. When YOLO works out, it's amazing. And when it doesn't, sucks, but that's okay. The good sometimes outweighs the bad, but
YOLO hasn't failed me yet. So I'm
okay.
like, let's
I'm
keep
hoping
up.
it doesn't for you. I really hope that keep that streak going for me, please.
Thank you. Honestly, the podcast was also a YOLO moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a YOLO moment for me too.
Love that.
Wait, how was it a YOLO moment for you?
Yeah.
Because that same week I have been listening to this like I don't usually listen to podcasts because my mind wanders. But I was watching one that had like a video. And I was watching the video and I was like, oh my God, like I wish I could like talk about stuff. I could carry this podcast.
Yes.
And,
you were doing very well. And I'm sure people listening will agree to that. No, but I'm the same way too. I can't like I don't really listen. I like watching. So if a podcast has a video format, I'm like totally for it.
As soon as you were like, I have a podcast, I was like, I know about mental health. I could do that. And I was like, I'm gonna join. And I just did it.
Good for you. I think this is great.
Thank you.
No, and Lorraine, you and Mouse, I guess you both
I
use the YOLO
mindset. I mean, I didn't, I'm not an expert on mental health, but I was like, yo, Bennett, can I like be on an episode? I was like that girl. I like slid in. I was like, yo, can I be on this? Because I thought it was so cool. And the next thing you know, he makes me his co-host, and I'm like, YOLO gave me the W,
Yeah, permanently involved.
I'm permanently involved now.
Yes. I think that pretty much about wraps it up. But thank you guys so much for listening to Mental Health on the Mic. You can go to our website, mentalhealthonthemic.com. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Mental Health on the Mic. Mouse, thank you for being here. Lorraine, great to see you as always.
Thank you, Mouse, for coming.
Yes.
No problem. No
so
problem.
much fun. We will see you guys next time.